Thank you, Suzanne. Let me just get set up here and share my screen.
Happy learning.
So Suzanne, can you see the Proteus slide?
Yes, I do.
Okay, perfect. All right, thanks everyone. Thanks to all the competitors in this Proteus competition. As Suzanne said, this is the largest group we've had, and it's great to see. I don't think we've ever provided this presentation to 74 participants that we have today. So let me first just thank the competition partners. So there's 6 universities, there's 6 technologies. This competition started about 5-6 years ago, just with Western technologies, with a collaboration between Tech Alliance and World Discoveries and Propel at the university. And now it has grown to 6 technology transfer offices at 6 universities. And it's great to have the entire community, the entire innovation entrepreneurship community really of Southwestern Ontario here, which is, it's pretty amazing. I'd like to thank their sponsors. We couldn't do any of this without sponsors. And so all the universities, the tech transfer offices, Innovation Canada, thank you so much. The law firms, it's amazing. So this is a pitch competition. There are 6 technologies and there is a $5,000 prize for each technology that is selected. And so you have pretty good odds of winning something. It's always been a great competition. But really what we're here to do is to promote the idea of innovation and entrepreneurship and a better understanding of how you commercialize technologies. Assuming everyone is in the right spot, we're in the business plan workshop for today. Just as a reminder, the business plan workshop is today. The deadline for the business plan submission is the 11th of February. And then we will have the pitch workshop on the 4th of March in preparation for the pitch event, which will take place on the 8th of April. And so it's a lot of work coming up to be done. Okay, so if normally we give this in person, this is the first time we've done it virtually. The advantage is I get to present to a larger group. The disadvantage is that we're using technology. If there is any problem, if something crashes, I will attempt to get on as quickly as possible. If there is any issue that is a disaster, I don't expect that, but I will text Jordan and let everyone know, okay? But I'm assuming it'll all be fine. So I don't know how many of you have done business plans. And normally a business plan is probably a 50 to 100 page document, but that's not what we're doing for this competition. This is just taken off the website. So if you haven't been to the website, you can go to the website, and I just discovered the laser pointer, which is amazing. You can see the technologies, and you can see the submission requirements as well as the pitch requirements. So we're really just looking at a 4-page business plan. This really is a high-level overview. And this is the suggested content. The content will be customized depending on the technology. The idea is to focus on the most important things for achieving your goal, right? And this is the Proteus competition. If you look at the website, the goal is creating viable commercialization strategies. This is what the reviewers want to see when they're reviewing the business plan. This is what the judges want to see when they're listening to the pitches. So keep that in mind. If you're ever stuck with what to write or how to prepare your pitch, understanding what is a viable commercialization strategy for the given technology that you've chosen to pursue. Give it your best shot. Before I jump into content, I just want to start with a story. This is a really interesting story that started about 20 years ago with the breakdown of the water treatment plant in Walkerton. That resulted in E. coli 0157 getting into the water supply. A number of people died and more were in hospital with kidney failure and other severe injuries. The E. coli 0157 is found in cattle. It doesn't cause a problem to the cattle. It's a normal flora, but from the cattle, it gets onto the fields and into the water table and onto agricultural crops. And you often hear of recalls due to E. coli 0157 found in lettuce or broccoli. In this case, it got into the Walkerton water supply. A scientist at UBC, Dr. Brett Finlay, who studied, a microbiologist who studied the interaction between microbes and the intestinal wall, came up with an idea that he could create a vaccine that would make antibodies that would prevent adhesion of the microbe to the intestinal wall of the cow or the cattle. And so they tested that idea, and it turned out he was right. They could do that. So they came up with the initial concept, tested it in the lab, created IP. And that's the way many of these technologies start. And it was very exciting. It was licensed by a biotech company called BioNiche. And they went ahead and developed the technology and proved that, yeah, indeed, when you test that in the field, it appears to prevent E. coli 0157 colonization of the animals. So, given that exciting news, they went ahead and built a manufacturing plant, $25 million. It's a vaccine, so you need to do GMP manufacturing. It's an expensive plant to build. Then they went ahead and they got regulatory approval. That means making clinical supply, testing it in the field, showing that the animals are perfectly healthy and the vaccine does its job and it works. And there's no negative effect due to the vaccine on the health of the animal or on the food supply. And they got clearance for an approval to sell the vaccine. And they went ahead. Nobody bought the product. It was a complete failure. In spite of achieving all the hurdles that we normally ask people to achieve, research worked, the technology worked, manufacturing worked, regulatory approval, sales and marketing did not work. This is an important lesson. It means that the best technology, the best IP, the best development program that you have, all of it cannot overcome the absence of a paying customer. So the question is, how do you try to prevent that? Commercialization is not simply based on having a cool technology. It's a complicated process. Investors know this, and the people who study startup companies know this. You start off with a great idea, and you get IP, and then you have to come up with a technology development plan and do something with it. Create a business, make a product or service that goes into the market. But the people who study business models and companies know that this is a very risky thing. Most high-tech companies fail. And you can fail for one of two broad categories of reasons. You can fail for a million reasons, but fall into two broad categories. One is the technology doesn't work. That you can mitigate. But the second reason, and the most common reason, is that the business model doesn't work. So business model failures are more common than technology failures in the creation of a new business based on a new technology. So the question is, how do we try to mitigate that? How do we try to prevent or reduce the failure rate due to business model failures? How to improve the chance of success? And really, you do that by, as early as possible, focusing not on technology development, but on business model development. You want to identify a sustained business model. We want to unpack this black box. What does it look like in here? So how do you improve the chance of success? So now for the purpose of the Proteus competition, remember, we're not doing the 50 to 100 page business plan. We're doing a 4-page business plan. So we really need to focus on those things that are the most important, those core elements of a business model that need to be in place to ensure success. So I want to illustrate this with a very simple diagram. This is what you're doing. You have a really cool new technology, and you're trying to figure out, where does it fit in the marketplace? What problem does it solve? What need does it fill? And you're going to go through a process of trying to figure that out. And once you have it figured out, we call that product market fit. So the idea here is to focus on those elements of product market fit to ensure that that the product fits somewhere in the marketplace, and to reduce business model failure. Without product market fit, there is no viable business plan. There is no commercialization plan. So these core elements to the business model are those things that are most important to ensure success in your commercialization plan. Okay. So I just want to go through some of the elements of product market fit. Oh, and I should say, you don't have to take lots of notes. Jordan will be sending out these slides in an upcoming email. They'll be made available to everyone. So you have a new technology. What is it and what does it do? When you're describing your business plan, when you're pitching this, people want to know, what is it? What does the technology do? What problem does it solve? Or what need does it fill in the marketplace? And most importantly, is that need real? So who has this need? Normally we would say the customer has the need. Who are the customers? How many are there? And how do you know that, how do they know, or what do they do to solve the problem now? What are your customers that have this problem? What do they do to solve the problem now? And why is it inadequate? Why are they looking for a new solution? Why does the customer care that you have a new product? Care enough to change what they're doing now to adopt a new product. And so that's the value proposition. Together, these 4 elements form product market fit. So for example, in the example that I gave a little while ago about BioNiche's E. coli vaccine, the E. coli were in the cattle. They didn't cause a problem. They were trying to sell the E. coli vaccine to farmers. There was no benefit to the cattle. There was no benefit to the farmer. Turned out the farmers didn't care about the vaccine at all. They didn't need it. They couldn't sell their cattle for any more money. It didn't offer any additional value. It just prevented something that did not impact them directly. So the farmer had no reason to seek a solution, and that product failed. There was no value proposition in that product. The problem they were trying to treat, E. coli in the environment, wasn't the farmer's problem. So you have to know what the problem is. You have to know who has it, who is the customer, and why they find the new solution valuable. I'm just going to take a little bit of time now, and together, this is product market fit, and go through these various steps. This is sort of a high-level overview and a suggestion of things that you can work on in your 4-page business plan to describe your commercialization strategy for your technology. You can customize it however you see fit. Keep in mind that the goal is to create a viable commercialization strategy. So not every item I talk about will be applicable to every technology. You want to pick the ones that are applicable to your technology. So describe the problem that you're dealing with in the marketplace. What is it? Who has it? Importantly, how is it currently addressed? And why is that inadequate? We're always trying to understand the motivation of the customer and why any new product will be valuable to them. So why is the current method of dealing with the problem in the marketplace inadequate? You want to do some market research. You want to try to identify who provides current solutions in the marketplace. The reason is that assuming there are other businesses, other companies providing current solutions to this problem, it means that it's a real problem. There's someone already selling products to deal with it. So it tells you that the customers do want something. The question now is yours better? What is the improvement and why is it valuable? From your market research, you can also learn whether any of these products are profitable and how do they take these products to market. Each product category usually has its own path to market. So by doing market research, a competitive analysis for those companies that are making products for your marketplace, for you dealing with your problem, they probably have a common way in which they brought their technologies to market. And chances are you will be doing something very similar. So you want to understand why the current solutions are inadequate and what needs to improve. What improvements would the customer like to see? And what benefit is it to the customer? Now you want to describe your technology. What is it and what does it do? How does it address the problem? How is it superior over the current solutions? And in some way it's better, faster, cheaper. There's some property or attribute that it has that is an improvement over what the customer does now. It could be saving time. It could be fulfilling multiple functions. There's many reasons why it would be superior. Question is, do the customers value that? So do the customers value the improvement? There are other things, are the costs far less than the potential revenue? Is IP required to bring this product forward? What's your unique advantage that discourages copying? All those are important elements, but the most important is what does it do and why does the customer find it valuable? So I just want to tell another story, give another example. So this is an example of a biotech product. It's called Exubera. It was inhaled insulin. This was a technology that was developed by Nectar in the early 2000s. It was the first time a protein could be aerosolized and be completely functional. So they were able to take a small protein like insulin, put it into an aerosol chamber and allowed you to inhale it. It would get into your lungs and it would function to control your blood sugar the same way regular insulin did that was injected. So Pfizer bought the rights to this and they thought would bring it to market and they expected to make about $2 billion a year by 2010. Analysts expected it to be a $5 billion market. So everyone was very excited. But again, go back to product market fit. What's the problem? Who's the customer? And what's the value proposition? So the original thought behind the problem was that people don't like needle sticks. People don't like injecting insulin. They have to do it 3-4 times a day before every meal, and people don't like needle sticks. And if you ask people whether they like needle sticks, chances are they would say, no, I don't like needle sticks. But the problem, of course, is this solution is a giant bong of insulin that is not very discreet. It's not easy to take. It's not very accurate. It's hard to control the dosage. So it's not convenient, a little less accurate. There's no clinical superiority, and it's a bit more expensive. So I think you see where this is going, right? The injections, they were minor, they were very accurate, they were very discreet. Exubera was more expensive. Actual worldwide sales were 4 million. Nobody really adopted it. Pfizer halted the program and wrote off the $2.8 billion they had spent on developing it. So the reason I show this example is that this is Pfizer. You know, these people know what they're doing, and yet they still got the basics of commercialization wrong. They still didn't quite get the problem in the marketplace. Does the product fit the problem? Does it solve the problem? And does the customer value the solution? So it's a lesson that is repeated over and over again. And just to show that, Mankind, another company, purchased the rights to this technology, and they made the bong a little smaller. Turns out still nobody wanted it, right? It didn't act that the whole product market fit, it didn't fit. And so that was not successful either. So how can you prevent this from happening? So the major lesson from all of these products that failed was you need to talk to the customer. You need to find out or validate that the product meets the customer's needs. The problem is real. The customer has the problem. They care about the problem, and that the solution is valuable to them. They're looking to change. They're looking for a new solution. So we talked about the problem, and we talked about the product. So now we want to understand a little bit more about the customer. Who has the problem? Who has the problem or the need? Do they fall into a single market segment or multiple segments? That's important to know. Sometimes there's just one market segment. But if there are multiple market segments, you want to know which one you're going after first, and you want to know why. And the reason that's important, especially if you're asking for investment, is that you basically get one try at it. So you want to try the customer segment that has the best chance of success. That is proving that the solution, the new technology works, and that the market finds it valuable. It doesn't have to be the largest market. It doesn't have to be the most profitable market. It has to be the one that proves the technology works and is desired in the marketplace. It's good to understand your customer profile and who decides on the use of the new solutions and what drives that decision. In the simplest sense, the customer who has the problem buys the new solution. But in a lot of technologies, that's not always the case. Certainly in healthcare, that's not the case. You know, doctors maybe want the new solution. Hospitals may purchase it. Insurance companies may pay for it. There's a lot of players involved, and understanding the motivation of each decision maker is important in coming up with your commercialization strategy and understanding what the value proposition is for each one for the new technology. The thing you want to get a handle on are the numbers. How many customers are there? Usually it's, how many customers per year could you sell to? So I just want to take a few minutes and talk a little bit about numbers. It is an important element of the business plan. So One thing that happens when people are putting together a business plan or a high-level overview of their business plan is they read general market research and they talk about how big the market segment is in billions or trillions of dollars. That's okay information, but it's not useful information. It's not information that investors are particularly interested in or partners. So usually what they want to do is they want to understand customer-driven forecasting. That is, how many customers do you have? I'm going to give an example from a clinical example in a minute. But the simple case is, you can say that if you have a technology that you're going to sell into the automotive industry, you can say the automotive industry is worth $1.2 trillion a year. But that doesn't tell me anything about your market for your product. If you say you could sell your product into 50,000 cars per year, now that's concrete. That tells me how big your market could be. Assuming it's $100 per car, in terms of sales, you may have a $5 million market. And so it's important to know that. This is just an example of a more complicated case. This is a clinical example. Somebody's developing a drug to treat stroke patients. But it's not just for any stroke patients. This is for ischemic stroke patients. So the number of stroke patients in the USA is about 795,000 per year. The number that have their first stroke, so the drug is made for patients that have their first stroke, is about 75%. So 610,000 patients now you're down to. Ischemic stroke, there's two types of stroke. There's stroke due to a bleeding and there's stroke due to a blockage in the artery. So the blockage in the artery is ischemic stroke. It's the most common stroke, but still it's 87% of the strokes are ischemic stroke. So now you're 530,000 customers potentially per year. Now, the drug that you want to develop is for those that can, there's a chance where the drug could improve their outcomes. So you want to exclude those patients who have massive strokes that are irreparable damage. And you want to exclude those patients that have very mild strokes who essentially there is no damage. So there's no way to measure an improvement. So you're going after patients that have medium strokes. Well, that's about 60% of the ischemic stroke patients. So now you're down to about 270,000 patients per year. If you look at the marketplace for comparable drugs in this class, for a treatment course, whatever that is, however many injections or as many administrations as it takes, for a treatment course, they would charge about $15,000 per treatment. So being conservative, assuming your drug's better, you may be charging more, but just to estimate, let's say you charge the same amount for that category. It's now $15,000 per treatment. Times 270,000 patients gives you a total market potential of $4 billion. The chance that you'll get 100% market penetration is very low, right? But you might get 25%. So that would make it $1 billion market. And the reason that is important is that an investor looking at this may say then, well, it could be worth $1 billion. So it's probably worth spending $25 to $50 million to try to get this on the market. Just test it and see if it works and see if it can get on the market. If we could do that for 25 to 50 million, it's probably worthwhile. So that's the customer, and that's the customer numbers. That tells you and defines the market that you're going after. We've always talked about, why? Why does a customer care? And that's the value proposition. Why do customers find the new solution valuable? That's, anytime you introduce a new solution, you're asking the customer to change their behavior. You're asking them to change from what they've always done to adopt something new. That's easy for certain things. Televisions, cell phones, cars. People like getting new gadgets and things. But in industry, that's not always easy. And so you have to understand what motivates the need for change, what the value proposition is, and what the benefits are to the customer in terms of what the new technology provides them. It's always going to be better, faster, cheaper, optimized in some way for what they are doing. The problem with the vaccine for E. coli, really, there was no value proposition. There was no customer. The problem that it was going after, the customer they tried to sell it to didn't have that problem. So there was no value proposition. For the inhaled insulin, really the problem was minor. And there was no, the product was an alternative to injections, but there was no value to it. In fact, it was more costly, it was not discreet, and it was, less accurate. So no clinical benefit. And when you don't have a value proposition that matches the customer's needs, there's no product market fit. And no matter how hard you try, that product will not be successful. Okay. So I talked about product market fit, the key core element of a business model. Without product market fit, there's really none of the other elements of a business plan or a business model matter because the product won't be successful. Well, assuming you have product market fit, assuming you have a technology that offers a really interesting new solution that solves a problem that a customer has and they find the new solution valuable, well, okay, how are you going to get it there? How are you going to get it to market? And so in your 4-page business plan, after you've described product market fit, you want to tackle, in general, how you're going to get this to market. What is the plan? So this is just an overview of some of the questions that you might want to address when you're putting this together, both in your business plan and in your pitch. I'm not going to go through it. I'm going to go through a couple of slides that illustrate some of these points. I'm not going to read this, and you're going to get copies of it. But what's the technology development strategy? What's the IP strategy, et cetera? So I'm just going to go through. Every technology has some kind of development pathway. It's good for you to understand what the pathway is. What are the major steps? What are the hurdles you need to overcome? And what's the strategy to overcome them? This is an example of a medical device. It's a generic pathway, but it's good to know what the hurdles are and the major steps to get there. Now, if you're doing a business plan for investors, you'd have to know this in detail. And you'd have to, these would be called major milestones, and you'd have to know the cost and the development, the cost and the timeline to reach each milestone. That's not what we're asking for here. We're asking for a general overview of what is the path to market. All right. Are there any regulatory hurdles in your path to market? And if so, what are they? Not everybody is doing a medical device, so you may not have FDA or Health Canada. You might need a CE mark in Europe. If it's electrical, you might need CSA approval. So there might be maybe not regulatory hurdles, but there might be standards that you need to meet. And so it's good to know that. It's good to know if there's any regulatory hurdles or standards that you need to meet and what the plan is to handle. Usually the plan is to, regulatory, it's, you have to meet with the regulators and go through their process to get approval. With standards, it's usually testing and building that into your product development plan. What is the role of IP in your business? Now, in this particular case, there's patents or patent applications likely associated with every technology. So you want to have a general understanding of what the role of IP is in the business. Is it required? Do you need IP? If you're going to ask for financing, you need IP. are you going to create any IP? Do you need to make sure that you have freedom to operate for your technology? Are you going to be infringing anyone else's patents if you practice the technology? That is not a complete roadblock, but you do need to know to develop a strategy to deal with it. So for most technology-based companies, having a good set of IP and a well-defined business model means investment. So with that, you can achieve investment. Without both of those, you probably will not achieve investment. So that's why the focus on having the product market fit in the business model to match the IP and the technology that you have would make it suitable for investment if that's the strategy to commercialize. All right. So now I want to just briefly overview some commercialization pathways. These are common commercialization pathways. I don't know which pathway is suitable for which technology. That will be up to you. But I just wanted to give a sort of a high-level overview of some of the common pathways that are used. So the first one is the simplest. That is direct licensing to a commercialization partner, a company that will commercialize the technology, take it all the way to market, and sell to the customers. This works best for products that are relatively low risk, for products that aren't too expensive to develop. It's not suitable for every technology. You can't always find a third-party commercial that's ready to take on an early stage technology in a university, but it does occur. The next example is, you have an early stage technology, but it needs a little bit of development work to get to the next level where a third party will now be interested in it. This is very common. So usually the way this is done is the third party is interested in the technology, but they want to see it advance just a little bit. And they may participate in that. They may have a collaborative research agreement that pays for some of the development in the university. Or you might be able to achieve this with some grants just to get it to that next stage to prove that it's more than just an early stage idea. And then license to a third party who takes it through all the rest of the way of commercialization and to sell it to customers and generate revenue. The third one is a little bit specialized. This is an example, I call it the biotech pathway. I don't think there are any biotech products in this competition, but in the case of a biotech product, usually the license of the technology goes into a company. It could be a startup or an early stage company that works on early stage products. And then they finance it, they need to raise money, and develop the product to a stage that a third party is interested in. Now, it's very similar to pathway number 2. The difference is this development work may cost a lot of money, much more expensive than what you could possibly do through a research contract in a university or through grants. So in biotech, it may cost you $20 to $40 million to develop your product to a phase 2 clinical trial where your pharma partner would be interested in it. And so anytime that there's a very expensive development pathway that requires financing, this is a model that would be suitable, assuming that the standard pathway is for transferring the technology into a third party that does the rest of the commercialization and gets it out to the customer, gets it into the market. And finally, this is perhaps the most common pathway for commercializing technologies. In this case, you have an early stage technology. It's licensed to some entrepreneurs who are interested in commercializing. They can finance it to whatever extent is needed. It may not be a biotech product. You may not need many millions of dollars. You just may need a little small amount of money. Maybe it can be self-financed or strategic use of grants and IRAP grants and other investments that you can attract into the startup based on the technology until you can develop into a commercial product that will then be sold to the customers, generate revenue, and be able to grow this customer market. Then if the product is successful and there's customer growth, at the option of the owners of the technology, the owners of the startup, they might license or sell to a third party that is a much larger player in the industry. So this is a very common pathway for the commercialization of technology. This would be standard for most medical devices, for example, would be commercialized this way. The biggest impediment to commercializing in this pathway really is getting all the entrepreneurs on board for this startup. But that's where we hope all of you come in. This is what we hope from the Proteus competition, is that we want to engage the community and take a look at all these projects that have the potential to go all the way to market. And with a bit of cleverness, can be licensed into a startup, raise a little bit of financing, develop the product into a commercial product, and get it onto the market. You know, that's what we hope will happen through this competition, and it is possible. Okay. So I've talked straight and quickly for about 40 minutes. And I just want to summarize, and then we'll take questions. I know I went fast, faster than usual because there's no audience interaction. As I said, you're going to get the slides, so you'll be able to review this. And keep in mind just a few things. This is a 4-page document that you're writing. Right? This is not a 50 to 100 page business plan. So it really means focus on the core elements. Keep in mind what the reader of these business plans wants to understand is how are you going to create a viable commercialization strategy for the technology? What the judges at the pitch competition want to understand is how are you going to create a viable commercialization strategy for this technology? You really want to understand how the technology allows for a new product or service that's needed in the market and valued by its customer. Those are the key elements to focus on. You want to identify a sustainable business model. Do you have product market fit? Is the problem in the marketplace real? Do the customers care about it? Are there enough of them? Is it one customer or is there a reasonable number? There's no magic number to that. You don't have to make billions and billions of dollars. It just has to make sense. It has to be. It has to make sense commercially. Know your numbers. Do your homework. Know how many customers you have. What the market potential is. What the revenue potential is. Understand your commercialization pathway. How are you going to get this from where it is to on the market? What sort of partnerships or licenses are involved? Can you take it all the way yourselves? I hope you can. And that's it. I'm going to leave it there and stop the slide share and get back to questions.
Thank you, Colin.
So it's different doing this on Zoom. Usually we do this in person. I can get feedback. I probably went a little fast on that. So if you have any questions, now's the opportunity here. It's yeah.
Hi there. I actually have a question. I did see on the Proteus website that there was a section that said you had the opportunity to talk to the inventors. Now, my team signed up pretty late. Was that something that happened before, or is that still something that is an opportunity for us to connect?
So there is an opportunity to connect. I think you can connect with Jordan. I don't know if it's through the website. Jordan can come on and confirm.
Yeah, so you would just email ProteusIC.
There you go.
w.ca, and I'll connect you with the researcher through email.
Perfect. Okay, awesome. Thank you.
I had a quick question.
Sure.
Will we be given, let me turn my camera on here. If we wanted more information regarding our technologies, like current investments put into it, or R&D, the amount spent in R&D to create it thus far, to help us when we're doing our profit, like our return on investment, things like that. If we wanted more information like that, will we have to reach out to the inventors directly, or do we go through you? Or will you be providing that to us?
So I think the answer is the same. You can reach out through the Proteus email address. And okay. I think Jordan will put you in touch with the tech transfer office that handles that technology.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And then we have another question. How can we find the accurate number of our potential customers? So that's a column question.
Yeah, so that's market research. So you're gonna have to define who the customers are, and then go do some market research through your library resources. I assume you're all on campus somewhere, and so you'll have access to library resources that you can look up a lot of that information.
And who will be evaluating the written business plan? So in this case, it will basically be the technology transfer offices. It will be divided by technology. So for example, here at Western, we have a business development officer who oversees this technology. And so he will be judging the business plans and scoring them. It's the same for the other universities as well.
Hi, Colin. I just had a quick question.
Okay.
If we need a manufacturer, do we need confirmation from them, or can we just assume that?
No, just you know that you need one, and the nature of it.
Okay, thank you.
Another question is, are we only looking for domestic market, or anywhere possible to set up a business and create profit?
I would say anywhere. However you can get this technology onto the market is what's important. The best commercialization strategy.
Does anyone have any more questions?
So I got one last question. Do we need to explain how much profit we'll be making?
If you can ballpark it, that's always a good thing, or at least show your rationale. Okay. Everyone will understand it's an estimate.
And then a question in the chat, do you have any advice for finding potential manufacturers, or distributors?
So the best advice is to understand how your competitors do it. Who do they use? Now, if they're all manufacturing it themselves, then that might be a clue. But if they're all using contract manufacturers, then that might give you a clue as to, who is out there doing contract manufacturing. So understanding how your competitors do it through your market research, if you can find that out, that will give you a clue. It'll help you understand how your industry works.
Okay, and we have a question in the chat. When we present our pitch, who are we presenting to? Is it the same panel of judges for all the technologies? And the answer is yes. We will be enlisting a panel of judges who are experienced in various industries and who have industry experience and are well equipped to judge business plans and business pitches. And so yes, they will be all the same judges. And how many teams will be selected for the pitch? So after the business plan has been submitted, 2 teams for each technology will go forward to the pitch competition. And yes, this recording will be posted and shared via email along with call-in slides as a PDF. Yes, you will be able to contact the Proteus email if you have any other questions, and we'll direct you to the person best suited to answer the question. And how many teams exist for each technology at the moment? It's all over the place, honestly. So we have each technology at least has several teams each. And did every team who submitted an abstract pass through the business plan stage? Yes.
How many teams will be pitching for each technology, Jordan?
For each technology, so the 2 for each technology. So there will be 5 or how many teams? Either 10 or 12, depending on how many business plans we get. But yeah, so it's 2 for each technology.
Right. So two for each technology will go through to the pitch competition.
Yes, but I would and just so you know, the business plan ranks heavily in the final score. So you definitely want to do a good job on your business plan and make sure that it's very thorough and well researched.
So a big part of selection happens at the business plan stage.
So we just got a question in the chat about the Waterloo technology. So there was only 1 submission in total for the abstract to the Waterloo technology. So Waterloo has withdrawn their technology from the competition. So it'll be the 5 technologies from the other universities, not including Waterloo. The Waterloo technology was the content delivery system. You can find it on the website. Colin, should we discuss sources of finance in our business plan?
If you can. So this is a high level. That would be on your commercialization pathway. If you need financing to do this move this forward, then make the case for it. If you need venture capital or angel financing, make the case. If you need partnerships, make that case. There may be sometimes You look for partners who are in the business, who are interested in the technology and interested in supporting you.
I actually have another question. What areas typically do students or individuals usually go wrong in? Like, are there areas where people focus too much attention on that allow them to not move forward to the next stage?
Jordan, have you looked at the previous years?
I can answer that question. My name is Tina Centris. I work at the University of Windsor, and I'm the lead from Windsor. The area that I find most students go wrong in from previous years is that they don't actually fill out all of the respective headings and sections of each of the business plans. I find that sometimes students miss things and don't allocate enough space in the page limits to hit all the headings, and then they obviously get marks deducted that way. But as long as you kind of follow the template that's on the website, most people have done really well.
So earlier in the presentation, you guys did state that obviously certain technologies won't have much focus in certain headings. So we do have to touch upon each heading, but obviously the amount of information per heading is up for interpretation depending on the technology.
Yep, that's what I would say. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we have a question, can you provide us with some kind of rubric on how it's being evaluated? So the rubric is confidential, but basically if you follow the business plan format requirements and submission requirements that are listed on the competition outline, that's basically what the rubric is evaluating. So do you know how many teams are doing the muscle training and recovery device? It was the highest number. It was probably upwards of 20, I believe. And I'm sorry, Kaylee, I'm not sure what you mean by was the first submission evaluated. If you mean the abstract was evaluated and given a score, and that score will be added to the business plan score, averaged out, and then that will be used to determine who goes on to the pitch phase of the competition.
Jordan, do you know?
For the
Phytotoxicological device, how many teams?
oh gosh. So just for the first question was for the McMaster Tech, there's about 10 teams, and then I think it's about the same for the Laurier technology.
Okay.
And we do not reveal the scores of the abstracts. And it's also around 10 for the pain measurement application tool.
Okay.
Yes, 4 pages, single spaced, and there are about 5 for the Windsor technology.
And that's on the website. So if you go to the website, you'll see the requirements.
Yeah, and in terms of the like format for the business plan, like you can have like the reference page isn't included, and if you have like a bunch of figures and pictures, that doesn't count. It's mostly like 4 pages of text.
So yeah, 4 pages, single spaced, and exhibits are allowed. So, or appendices.
Okay.
So I apologize if that was fast. I think it was a little fast, but as I said, the recording will be available and you'll be getting the slides.
Thank you very much, Colin. I think that brings us pretty much to the end. I see like people are leaving the session. So I think I just wanted to, again, extend thank you to our sponsors. Without our sponsors, we cannot, put this competition forward. And again, encourage you guys to, to connect with your community, ask questions, and good luck with your competition. We're looking forward to the next stage. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll end the session now, and then I'll get the recording uploaded to YouTube and get the email sent out with Colin's slides.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Jordan.
Thanks, Colin.
Thank you, Jordan. Thanks, Colin.
Oh, you're welcome.
Great session.